like you say, Andrew, most of us truly are feeling very isolated from within. And the more that we can share and be buddies to each other, the better off we're all going to be.
You're right. Be buddies. That's what it's got to start at. Get out and talk to your neighbor. Stop being isolated. So many of us that look onto different subjects find ourselves isolated until we put out the manifestation we want other like-minded people around us. And when Andre became a part of that meditation group, he manifested that for himself because that's what he needed to heal in his life. We need groups like that all over the country, all over the world, people willing to share that honored space of just coming in to have silence, separate of the world. I can go into the Atlantean Lemurian concepts where that was commonplace. Instead of restaurants everywhere, there were groups that would get together and volunteer their time so that they could create a space of that energy. And whatever form of self-expression came out was allowed in that. Or if you wanted just silence, there were the groups that used the vibratory silence chambers. That was commonplace. Street corners were filled like that. And we're going to have to come into an understanding that business and commerce has redefined the way we live. And now we will have to redefine business and commerce in such a way that money is not going to be applied in any of the concept that we have. And so much about letting go now is letting go of the concept of money because that's its anchor into this world. It's the root foundation of everything. It's what makes the world go round. No, we are what makes the world go round. We, the neutral observers, are ultimately the key of making this world go around in a way that helps everyone instead of helping the few. But you see the need for places like Andre's meditation group.
Oh, certainly.
So Andre.
Yes, ma'am.
What would you offer a theory to the world of how people could share spaces like that? You've been in business before. What needs to be done to help business minds be transformed that we need sacred space places?
Yeah. For me, my story. I've been beaten up by everyone, so I've pretty much lost the fear because there's nothing left to fear in many respects. So for me, it's about being the change I seek in the world, and people that have attachments and things like that, just not be what they fear in themselves to be. But in the workspace and that, there's a whole thing about having like a nap in the afternoon, and you guys were talking about exhaustion and work and all that. Well, Australia is very different, right? I know I've got a friend who's a shaman in another area of America, and we talked about the Aussie versus the American, and you guys are only allowed 2 weeks off a year, which, I thought that was just mind-boggling, right? So my guess is that people over there should instantly get 4 weeks off a year. And because, if the workers aren't milked of their life force, then they actually can produce a lot more, right? Yeah, like work, I haven't actually worked for a long time, so it's quite different and I've developed a lot. But for me, everyone I interact with, I just live my truth and I speak my truth and I don't fear being judged or anything. And so just interactions with one-on-one or a group of 8 or whatever, and I just, just that judgment and observer sort of role, and being able to observe the feeling and the effect on yourself, and then, maybe not getting into an argument, maybe resisting that urge of biting that hook and stuff like that. So they're very basic, and, I take a lot of books around me. I carry a backpack full of books. It's about 20 or 30 pounds. And the best book to start off, which I found, was Malcolm Gladwell's Blink. Because you're talking about discernment earlier, and that book, he tells you at the start, 80% of the time the gut is right, but we just don't listen to it. We need this constant validation, and, you could be more efficient in the way you apply your experience. Because, in business, right, like say I have an IT background. So I spent a lot of time doing the same problems. So then I recognized what problems were by instinct, by the gut telling me, and, you know, just listening to the wise people in their business and stuff like that. So maybe I've digressed a bit, but there's so many solutions. And, yeah, nutrition as well is very important. But, yeah, I don't want to rattle on too much.
When's the last time you took the day off concept? I know you've been out of work for a while, but a day off. You know, you've said before you broke it up into 42-hour schedules. It's what you used to do.
Yeah. Well, after my IT thing, I taught myself currency trading, and because it starts on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. Australian time, and it shuts at about 2 a.m. Saturday morning, so it doesn't stop, right?
Right.
I divided my 168-hour week into 4 42-hour days. So I learned to really be very efficient in my being. And my healer, Kevin Robb, talks about misguided thoughts. You know, it's like, oh, I'm not good enough and all that, you know.
Uh-huh.
I just learned in my energy and my thought process through all that, being able to stay up and really intensely awake for 42 hours straight, constantly, that once I eliminated all those misguided thoughts and, you know, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, or, you know, whatever thing is attacking your own being in your mind, because we all do it, we don't realize it until we actually really take time out and maybe write all your thoughts down, you know. Once I did a lot of work on myself and I eliminated those thoughts. So in myself, when I eliminated just those, I would feel myself going into a state. And that's linguistics, right? It's like how your words are so brilliant, Andrew. It's maybe my linguistics of thoughts. And I just eliminated what was a waste of energy. So I got very efficient in my mind space. So even my thoughts, not even just my words, were linguistically perfect. And once I did that, and it took a long time, right? Because once it's like a muscle, you have to exercise it. And when you start kicking it in, it aches and you wear yourself out. But you get past the point where you actually gain energy from it and it becomes your being. So when I remember, now that you mention that, I remember watching the 4400. It was a really brilliant TV series with all these 4400 that were taken, abducted, and they all had abilities. And I remember this baseball player, he got telepathy. And I was thinking, wow, this guy, you know, he became a baseball star, but the telepathy went off the charts and he started reading everyone's minds and stuff, and it was too overwhelming. And I just took responsibility for my thoughts then, because I thought, you know, I don't perceive telepathic thoughts, but maybe others do. So my best is to really manage my thoughts and not put the telepathic stuff out there, to really reduce the clutter out there, because I know a lot of people do and they're not even aware of it. So when I got really efficient in my thoughts, you know, that's where the clarity of, you know, discernment really kicked in, right? So,
yeah. So when you began to go on the healing process, how hard was it to break that 42-hour, you know, 42-hour days?
You mean when I finished?
Yeah, when
trading?
you were done. When you're done trading, you had to break that cycle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always had a lot of energy, so it was just a challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went bankrupt, which is probably the worst thing for a currency trader, but it was actually, it sounds pretty bad, but it was actually very healing, because I had debts and stuff, and I was connected to the banking system, and a lot of my life force was pretty much dedicated to all that. And when I released that and surrendered to that fear of the bankruptcy, which was like an avenue that I just didn't want to go down through, which in the event was the only one I had, so I surrendered to it. And it was very, you know, very healing in letting it go and going down that fear path and realizing it was actually the best option. So when I went into the unknown and went bankrupt, it sort of broke it. But I'm still up at, 2 o'clock now talking to you, so I'm a bit of a night owl. But yeah, I did mention I was avoiding putting my heart on the line, and I created this impossible world of trading currencies and doing all research and stuff like that. And when I realized I was avoiding putting my heart on the line because I'd been so heartbroken, part of that was letting go of that, that regiment and stuff like that. And then I went through the bankruptcy and went to a whole new level of healing and stuff. So,
and you found your path, and you ignited your own illumination.
Yeah.
And it was the only way you could have done it.
Absolutely, because I was so resistant to change, and because I was, even on another level back then, I was in fear. Even though I'd gone through a lot of fears and stuff, it was probably the last real, the money system we can talk about. I don't really want to get into that, but it was all pretty negative, and it was very impossible at the time, and Greek was going through all its crap, and it was just like, you're good at this, it's just not the time. Let it go, sunshine, and move on. And I mean, I probably still got issues and debris in relation to that emotional trauma, but for me, having the courage to go through it is huge.
Exactly.
I look at it as my, many things. I look at Mount Everest, and it's an emotional Everest that I climbed and I accomplished and I conquered, and I'm bulletproof potentially on many levels because I went through that.
You did go through many levels of self-expression and many layers to get to where you are, where you're comfortable coming on air, as well as the personal research that you did to inform yourself. And as you began to inform yourself, you created that inner light, and that inner light of knowing, understood your own layers of truth. And as you began to understand your soul contracts with money, we all have them. And I said earlier in the show, we can get rid of all of our soul contracts, but it requires you to do it in a focus and a quiet within the silence, so you're the neutral observer that can seize the contracts that only lead you into polarity. And when you begin to eliminate the concept of polarity from all of your spiritual expression, you'll realize that the waveform of light that you are, the light being that you are, is ultimately about completing the part of the physical to the energy spirit connection through your genetic wisdom and knowledge. People ask me, how do I connect to the Akashic Records? I did the hard work. And honestly, the hard work isn't really that hard, because we are the ones that define how hard the healing path or process is. We can make it easy for ourselves, but we also don't fool ourselves that the easy parts come first and the hard parts get later. We may tone it down a bit, but it's our personal expression of free will that leads us into that understanding of how to turn it down, how to roll with the punches, how to give yourself time away from whatever it is that prevents you from going into that moment of silence, where you can understand that the advance into it is to find the spark, to fan it with your own wind energy, so that it takes the form of energy that you wish, so your records and knowings are revealed. I say records, I say knowings, it's about understanding, all information is available in the earth-mind energy field. It's your personal choice to be of service to it and understand its messages.